I'm Johnny Venerable, the returning Brian Baldinger here on a football Monday. Baldy, it's been a hot minute. You guys have been cranking out tremendous draft content on the All City NFL podcast. What's been going on? What's been top of mind for you guys?
You know, Johnny, honestly, I'm like everybody else that's, kind of involved in this whole draft process, which is 3.5 weeks away. I'm literally just grinding tape, talking to, people, that are in charge, that are looking at these same guys, kind of cross-checking some things. And, pro days are finished right now. It's kind of really hone in right now and just really know what you're looking at. I mean, the numbers and the testing, that's all important, but I never want to get too far away from the tape. So I've just been looking at different players every day and just, looking at the good, bad, and the ugly of some of these players.
Yeah, we're all draft all the time right here. We put free agency behind us. We're going to get to free agency here a little bit because I want to get your thoughts on Cardinals adding a guy like Jonah Williams at presumably left or right tackle. Let's start with the draft. Baldy, I was at the Combine a month ago, and we waited for Marvin Harrison Jr. to talk, and he didn't talk. He didn't do anything, and he hasn't done anything this entire draft process. Obviously, I want your opinion on how he and his dad have opted to take the draft process, which is basically opt out, and how it potentially impacts what I think is elite tape. Like, if I'm the Cardinals, I would take him at 4. I have no concerns about it. Do you have any concerns at all with Marvin Harrison Jr.?
No, but I don't think it helps him. He still Monty might very well take him at 4. I mean, he should be there then. We'll see. But I think players should get to know teams. I think it only helps them. It helps them during this process right now, Johnny. It helps them down the road. If there's a second contract and the team doesn't want to pony up and they've made these relationships and they've left these impressions. And I know, Marvin very much probably will be a star player in one place for a long time, but you never know. And so I just think it helps. I just think it helps the whole process. And not that anything probably should be looked at beyond his tape for 3 years at Ohio State. However, you do want to know who you're drafting. And I do think when you talk to players, you learn about players. And the more excited they make you get about how excited they are about the game, the more enthused you become. Or vice versa. And so, look, his father's Hall of Famer. Like, I'm sure he's given him great guidance, but I like to get to know my players. I like my players to talk.
Yeah, he is the apple of Cardinal fans' eyes, whether or not he's working out this offseason. But the other kind of option that has been created really organically past 2 weeks is the Minnesota Vikings now have 2 first-round picks. The Minnesota Vikings, Kirk Cousins not coming back. They've kind of made it clear. Kevin O'Connell, like they're gonna draft somebody. And I think they're going to come up for somebody. Like, how would you weigh that if you're Monty Austin-Ford, knowing what you know about these quarterbacks? Like, do you feel like where the Cardinals are in their rebuild, they are in a position to pass on a potential trade-down option from Minnesota or the Giants or whomever?
Well, they're in a position this year, Johnny, where they have 11 picks already. So you have 11 picks. You have Houston's pick from last year. So you got 4 and 27 right now. You've got 3 third-round picks. You've got 6 of the top 90 picks.
Yeah.
Now there's certainly going to be conversations for Monty to trade down. I mean, there's going to be teams that want to come up, and sometimes the further they come up, the bigger the bounty is, right? So, I mean, you got to take the phone call or phone calls, and you have to weigh it all, and you can create some assets for next year and add this year. So it's just a question is if Minnesota or somebody else, Denver or, somebody, Las Vegas wants to move up, into that number 4 spot. It's just a question of what are you going to be comfortable with taking? The fan base, I'm sure, wants the next Larry Fitzgerald. They want Marvin to come in there, and they want a star receiver. And that's what Marvin presumably is. So if you pass on him to trade back, to gain assets, you just got to know that the fan base may feel a little disappointed. It depends on who you get, but they might feel a little disappointed, and you have to be prepared for that.
Have you had a chance to dive into these offensive tackle prospects? Because part of the trade down option, I would presume for the Cardinals, we've heard they want to keep doubling, tripling down their offensive line. Like I do feel like Marvin, and we've said this, kind of the exception to the rule for them, but they want to go line of scrimmage players. I mean, Jonathan Gannon told us at the combine, like, we prioritize guys putting hand in the dirt. And I'm a big Joe Alt guy. Is he your offensive tackle number one, or are there some other guys that maybe we should keep on our radar?
Well, I think Fuaga is, and J.C. Latham are right in the conversation. Okay. Now, they could be just presumed like right tackles, but Paris Johnson might very well be your right tackle for the future. I don't know with Jonah coming in, how they feel about Paris. I thought Paris played great last year. Yep. Not great. I think he played very well. He started every game.
Yeah.
And he had a good attitude. I enjoyed talking to him during the season. But I think there's a lot there to work with. And then Jonah has, he played right tackle in Cincinnati because they went and got Zeus. And so he kind of went out of position. I kind of feel like Jonah has football left in him at left tackle. But I like Joe Alt. I'm a little biased. I know his father. His dad played with my brother in Kansas City for a long time. And I've known his dad, John, for a long time. So I'm a little biased. But it's you can get one of these guys. There might be 8 of them that go in the first round, including Graham Barton, who very well could be a center at this next stage. But there could be 8 guys taken. There could be guys at 27. So I think you depend. But if you want one of the elite guys, if you want Joe or JC or Fashanu right now or Fuaga, you might have to get in the top 15 for sure to get one of those guys.
Yeah, it's receiver, it's quarterback, it's offensive tackle heavy, which I think gives Cardinal fans a lot of pause, because it's like, okay, if we're going to trade down and get more assets, like, can you take a defensive player with your first pick if you're the Arizona Cardinals? Like, I think a guy like Byron Murphy II is somebody I would imagine they have a lot of interest on out of Texas. We know they've met with Jerzon Newton. Jonathan Gannon, they love to prioritize defensive linemen. His time in Philadelphia and Minnesota. Cardinals don't have a bunch of premier players up front. Is there a defensive tackle that stands out to you?
I like Johnny Newton.
Yeah.
I like Johnny. He is an explosive 3 technique that gives you a lot of juice. I think he has got, he's got elite tape, but he looks like an NFL 3 technique. He's got great hips. He can go from a 3 technique to a 1 technique on one step. And I'm not taking anything away from Byron Murphy. Like, I think he's a good player. I think there's, 3 or 4 guys. But Johnny Newton has been my number 1 interior defensive lineman in this draft. Now, you can look at Darius Robinson. You can look at bigger bodies that are space eaters inside. But Newton looks like he's a guy that you need in there to push the pocket, to win the one-on-ones away from the center sliding away, that he's got short area quickness, the way say, like, I don't want to compare him right now to Quinnen Williams, but it took Quinnen Williams a couple of years to be Quinnen Williams. But if you look at the way they have paid defensive tackles in the NFL right now, whether it's Jeffrey Simmons or Deron Payne, some of these guys, Newton looks like he's one of those guys to me right now.
Yeah, that disrupting defensive tackle that can get you maybe in a contract year 8 to 10 sacks. I mean, the Cardinals desperately need that. A Dockett, a Calais Campbell, and maybe you can get him in the 20s. Something you can't get in the 20s, I would assume this year, franchise quarterback. And we talked about it a little bit off air. The Cardinals are going to benefit from 4, maybe 5 QBs going really early in this draft. Now, you had a chance to talk to Michael Penix on the All City NFL podcast back in February, and then he just kicked ass at his pro day. Like, has he inserted himself amongst these teams now in the top 15, 20 picks to be a first rounder?
Well, he's been my second favorite quarterback in this process.
Okay.
Now, I understand people have concerns about his injuries. Okay. It's real. All right. You get your ACL, twice, but he's just played 27 straight games at Washington without any injuries. Okay. Now, maybe he's turned a corner there. It's concerns for some teams for sure. He did all the physical work and there's nothing there. Okay. There's no flags. All right. He told me in that podcast he was going to run the 4.4s. It raised my eyebrows because I remember asking Kyler how fast he is. He goes, Baldy, I didn't run since, I was at Allen High School in Texas, but I probably in the 4.2s. Lamar never ran. So some guys didn't run, but yeah. I don't. Anthony Richardson ran a 4.44. That's the fastest I can remember. I don't know, John, exactly all these guys, but I mean, 4.46 is elite.
Yeah,
And then you go,
and it
okay,
helped him last year.
it bails him out, but he wants to beat you from the pocket. And,
Yeah.
part of this quarterback process is this a guy that can elevate your program? He transfers from Indiana to Washington. Kalen DeBoer comes in. His offensive coordinator comes in, who's now at Seattle. And, they take a 4-12 moribund program, and they put him in a national championship game in 2 years. And along the way, he tells Roma Dunze and Polk and Jalen Polk and McMillan, stay. It's going to be worth it. Don't leave. And they all listened to him. And here they were, 24-3 over 2 years. I think the kid is pretty special.
What about J.J. McCarthy? Are you buying in? Because like preseason, we're all talking about Caleb Williams and Drake May 1-2, and then Jaden Daniels has a Heisman year, rightfully so, puts himself in contention to be a top pick. This J.J. McCarthy hype, Baldy, like I am fortunate for the Cardinals that it's happening because it's going to benefit them. But a guy who didn't throw 3,000 yards, I think he had 22 touchdowns. I know Jim Harbaugh, loaded team, right? Didn't ask him to do too much. Like, when you look at the tape, like, are you buying this as a top 3 to 4 pick, or is this kind of media or team driven to get some other guys to fall back?
Well, J.J. McCarthy is benefiting from a lot of things right now. I mean, he goes to the combine, he competes, and he throws. A lot of guys decide not to do it. So on that weekend, when all these quarterbacks are throwing, J.J.'s getting all of the attention.
Yeah.
Okay? His coach comes out and says he's the best quarterback in the draft. Probably hyperbole, Johnny. Probably expect that from Jim, but still. Yeah, it came out of Jim. Okay. And then, he was an elite 5-star recruit, IMG Academy, all that stuff. But the one thing that he's not going through that I remember when Cam Newton went through this, a lot of guys went through it. Like, they're just watching tape and they're just finding reasons to knock you down. It could be Jaden Daniels. Well, he's got a slender frame. He can't take NFL hits the way he did. You can't really do that with JJ. Because they didn't ask him to do a lot. I mean, against Penn State, he didn't throw the ball in the second half of the game. Like, what are you supposed to do to try and say, oh, well, he can't make these layered throws or these tight window throws or whatever people say?
Right.
There's just not a lot there to tear him apart on. And, oh, by the way, they just went 15-0. So, in a lot of these games were over, in the second quarter. So there's just not a lot there. And so now it's truly a projection. And so you have to be very, very confident in what you have seen, who he is, and how he's going to take his game to a next level when he's going to be asked to do all the things that he wasn't asked to do at Michigan.
You touched on it a little bit earlier when we were talking about the offensive lineman, but the Cardinals do bring in Jonah Williams from Cincinnati. He's got experience at left or right tackle. It sounds like he prefer to play left tackle, Baldy.
Yeah.
Think about DJ Humphries, unfortunately suffering his knee injury. He's off the team now. What will Jonah Williams bring to the Cardinals? Because, I mean, it's a 2-year deal, 26 years old, right? And they have this plethora of an offensive tackle class that they can still dive into. Like, is this the perfect kind of Band-Aid player, or could it be something more a la like a Will Hernandez for the Cardinals?
Well, it's a good comp because Will was run out of New York. Couldn't nail down the right guard job there. Played very well last year between Froholt and Paris. Like, I thought Will, played well. And some of the protection issues he had in New York, it didn't really show up. Some of the lack of quickness, he just wants to maul you. But, I think you got to let Jonah go play himself into the position right now and get back there. He was not an elite player at Cincinnati. One of the reasons why they went out and got Zeus. But he was a good player. Joe Burrow had a habit, because the way Joe likes to play, of holding the ball a while, which never benefits left tackles. Joe's not going to take off like Kyler would or will. So I think it can be much more than a Band-Aid. He could be your guy. We didn't think DJ Humphries was going to eventually. I mean, he was drafted. He was 19 years old. He played himself into the job. Yeah, but you don't know. I can't say. They've got a lot of picks. I mean, if you can upgrade the position, upgrade it. And sometimes, like Jonathan Ogden was drafted number 2 overall by Baltimore in 1996. His first year, he played left guard, and just to get him on the field and get value. Then he went.
Can Joe Alt play guard? You think Joe Alt can play guard?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. Oh, there's no doubt he can play guard. And so sometimes you go, okay, let's go plug him at guard for a year, and we can make the evaluation. That's kind of what Tyler Smith did in Dallas. He went and played guard. First round pick out of Tulsa. Was a good guard. Had a lot of power. Looked good there. Okay, Tyron Smith's gone. He's their left guard, left tackle. I feel like if you like Joe Alt, at 4, you could take him at 4. He's going to be there. You could play him at guard. And if things don't work out with Jonah, you got your left tackle. I mean, it's a conversation.
Absolutely. We love the conversation with our guy, Brian Baldinger, Baldy, All City NFL podcast. We're going to have him on every single week leading up to the 2024 NFL draft. Thank you so much, Baldy. Appreciate the time today.
Yep. Appreciate it now. Yep. Talk to you soon.